Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the B segment of episode 61 of The Loud House, Missed Connection. We begin this segment at the Loud House, where we see Lori entering her and Lenny's room and preparing for her 4 o'clock call with Bobby, which is, in her words, the highlight of her day. Bobby is about to answer the call from Lori, but he's interrupted by his grandpa Hector. Hector tells Bobby that the freezer case of the bodega is malfunctioning. The contents of the freezer case are melting. So Bobby rushes off to help his grandpa, and he ends up not answering the call from Lori. Lori is confused about why Bobby didn't answer the call. At a later point in time, we see Bobby is continuing to clean up the mess that was created from the freezer case malfunctioning, and eventually Lalo the dog enters the bodega. Bobby requests that Lalo finish cleaning up the mess so that he, Bobby, can call Lori back. So Lalo proceeds to lick up what's left of the mess, and Bobby tries to call Lori. At the Loud House, we see Lori finding a snake in her sock drawer. The snake belongs to Lana, and Lana reveals that the snake is looking for a warm spot to lay eggs in. Bobby is confused about why Lori didn't answer the call, and he's worried that Lori might be upset about him not answering the call from a little while ago. At the Loud House, we see Lori getting Lana and the snake out of her, Lori and Lenny's room, and then Lori calls Bobby again. Bobby answers this call, so at the same time, Lori and Bobby greet each other, and they quickly apologize to each other for not answering the earlier calls. Lori and Bobby then try to have a conversation with each other, but the conversation is very awkward due to misunderstandings that happen on both sides of the conversation. So these misunderstandings are Lori panicking when she sees what she thinks is a baby snake, but it's actually just a scrunchie. And Bobby makes a comment when he sees Lalo throw up after licking up the rest of the mess that was caused by the freezer case malfunctioning. Lori and Bobby quickly clarify the misunderstandings to each other, but even after the misunderstandings have been clarified, the conversation is still awkward. So Lori and Bobby end the conversation, and they both have sad expressions on their respective faces. So the next scene has a split screen that shows both the Loud House and the Casa Grande building, and it's a later point in time. So we see Lynn Sr. entering Lori and Lenny's room to let Lori know that it's almost time for dinner, and he sees that Lori looks troubled. Ronnie Ann enters the bodega to let Bobby know that it's almost time for dinner, and she sees that Bobby looks troubled. Lori and Bobby tell their respective family members about the awkward conversation that they just had with their significant other a little while ago. And Lynn Sr. assures Lori that he will be back. He's just going to get some backup. That's what Lynn Sr. says. And Ronnie Ann admits to her older brother that this isn't her field of expertise. We do see, though, that Maria and the Casa Grande family are by the doorway of the bodega, and Frida assures Bobby that this is their field of expertise. So we see Lynn Sr. and Rita talking to Lori, and we see that the joint Santiago family and Casa Grande family are in the bodega. So Lori and Bobby tell their respective family members present that they don't understand why the conversation was so awkward, and they're also admitting that they also admit that they're worried that long distances are starting to affect their bond with each other. Carlos Sr. Tries to cheer Bobby up by mentioning how he, Carlos Sr., and Frida were long-distance sweethearts when Frida was attending art school. Lynn Sr. and Rita try to cheer Lori up by mentioning how they, Lynn Sr. and Rita, were separated for a month during a time when Lynn Sr. had mono. After that, the Loud parents give Lori advice, and Frida gives Bobby advice. Now, the advice is worded differently, but the general point is the same between these different characters' advice. Yes, it's worded differently, but the same point is there. And that point is along the lines of strengthening the passion of your bond, even if you're separated by distance. Yeah, that's the general idea of the point that's being made for the advice that both Lori and Bobby are receiving. So Lori and Bobby are thinking over this advice and trying to figure out ways how to execute this advice. So the next day rolls around. Bobby calls a pizza parlor in Royal Woods and makes a request to deliver a special pizza to Lori. However, the twins, Lana and Lola, are the ones that answer the door when the special pizza is delivered. And the pizza is shaped like a heart. Lana and Lola don't understand why the pizza is shaped like a heart, although Lana thinks that the pizza is supposed to be shaped like a butt. In any case, though, Lana and Lola eat the pizza, so Lori doesn't get to see the pizza. At a later point in time, we see Lori is at a print shop, and she's requesting an article about her and Bobby be added to the newspaper. Yes, Lori is at a print shop to request an article about her and Bobby in the newspaper, and she intends to have this newspaper delivered to the Casa Grande building. So after the article has been made, the newspaper with the article is delivered to the Casa Grande building. But Hector sees the newspaper, and he doesn't understand why there's a newspaper at their building, because he doesn't. He said that, yes, Hector says he doesn't understand. Talking to himself out loud, Hector says he doesn't understand why a newspaper came to the building, because he doesn't have any newspaper subscriptions. He says that he gets his news through gossip. So Hector ends up throwing the newspaper away, so Bobby doesn't get to see the newspaper. So at a later point in time, Lori and Bobby don't hear back from each other, and Lori and Bobby are both worried that their attempts to show their significant other that they cared ended in failure. That's what they fear. And so Lori and Bobby are both determined to try harder after this. So later on, we see Bobby is recording a video for Lori. Bobby says that the intention of this video is for Lori to see what it's like at the bodega, so that it feels like Lori is there with Bobby. That's the intent of the video. And after Bobby, yes, we see a little bit of this video, and then later on we see Bobby is, after Bobby saved the video, he's added the video to a flash drive, and he puts the flash drive in an envelope, and he's going to mail it to Lori. But Bobby leaves his room to go see Ronnie Ann. He thinks that Ronnie Ann might have a stamp that he can borrow. But when Bobby leaves his room, Carlino, aka Carl, sneaks into the room, and he takes Bobby's flash drive out of the envelope, and Carlino puts his own flash drive into the envelope. So Lori ends up seeing Carlino's video instead. Yes, Carlino's flash drive had a video of his own. Carlino is trying to play a guitar and sing a song, and he's wearing a fake mustache. And the video is interrupted when Frida enters the room to let Carlino know that his train-themed pajamas are all clean now. So yes, Lori naturally isn't really fond of Carlino's video after that. So later on, yes, it's a later point in time, and Lori calls Bobby. And Bobby thinks that Lori is going to call, Bobby thinks that Lori is going to call him about the video that he thought he sent her, not realizing that Carlino switched the flash drives. But Lori actually called to suggest a virtual date night. Bobby fears that Lori didn't like the video and she's not even going to bring it up because she doesn't like it. But Bobby decides to put that thought aside and inquires Lori about what a virtual date night is. Lori says that a virtual date night is when they talk to each other over the phone while they watch the same movie together. And Bobby does agree to go with that. Or yes, Bobby thinks that's a good idea and decides to give it a try. So later on in the night, we see Lori and Bobby are watching a movie on their respective computers, and they're talking to each other over the phone. However, complications happen because of different Wi-Fi's. The video on Bobby's end, Bobby isn't too far along in the movie because the video for Bobby's computer keeps buffering. So Lori ended up seeing more of the movie than Bobby, and Lori accidentally gave away an event that happens later on in the movie before Bobby got to see it. And Lori does try to pause the movie so that Bobby can catch up, but some ads play, and Lori is getting annoyed by the ads that keep popping up. So eventually, though, Lori and Bobby decide that this isn't working out. This virtual date night isn't working, so they decide that they'll have to try something else tomorrow. So after they hang up, Lori and Bobby both decide that they need to see each other in person. So the next day, we see Lori is driving to Great Lakes City and Bobby is driving to Royal Woods. They actually do pass by each other without realizing it. So Bobby arrives at the Loud House and Lori arrives at the Casa Grande building. And when Lori enters the bodega, she sees Carlino in there. And Carlino tries to explain to Lori about the train-themed pajamas. But Carlino's explanation is interrupted when Bobby calls Lori. And Lori and Bobby both realize that they ended up traveling to the other's place without realizing it. So Lori assures Bobby that she will be back at Royal Woods. Lori drives back to Royal Woods. And Lori and Bobby are happy to see each other in person again. And Lori and Bobby both tell each other that they came up with different plans for what they can do with each other in person. Or, yes, ways that they can spend time with each other in person. They have different plans for that. So first up is one of Bobby's plans. Bobby brings Lori to Royal Woods High School because he wants to recreate the event that led to them having their first date. This event was Bobby leaving brownies in Lori's locker. So yes, Bobby wants to go inside of Royal Woods High School and put some brownies in Lori's locker. However, Lori wonders how they're going to get into the high school because it's Saturday. Bobby figures that maybe they can go in through one of the windows, but an alarm goes off, so Lori and Bobby have to quickly leave. And so Lori is trying to get to a romantic balloon ride. This was one of Lori's plans. Yes, one of Lori's plans was a romantic balloon ride. Unfortunately, though, the balloon ride is leaving without them, and Lori already paid for the romantic balloon ride. And then one of the sandbags falls on top of Bobby. We hear the hot air balloon operator off screen, and he apologizes. He admits that he unfortunately has a tendency to accidentally throw sandbags on top of people. So the next scene shows another of Bobby's plans. Bobby wants to bring Lori to the location of their first date, which was Jean Juan's French Mex buffet. Unfortunately, though, the restaurant is closed due to health code violations. So Lori tries another plan. Lori tries another of her plans, and Lori's plan is to go to a restaurant called The Dark Side of the Spoon. Lori explains that at this restaurant, you actually eat with the lights out. There's no light source within the restaurant, so you eat in absolute darkness. Lori says that this restaurant is supposed to be one of, if not the most romantic of restaurants in Royal Woods, and Bobby thinks that's trendy in his words. So Lori and Bobby enter the restaurant, and like Lori explained earlier, the dark side of the spoon is in complete darkness. There's no light source, and this ends up causing some complications. Bobby thinks he found an empty table, but the table is already occupied. And Lori tries to find the light switch, but she accidentally turns on the sprinkler system, which gets everyone wet. So yes, Lori and Bobby don't have a very pleasant experience at the dark side of the spoon. So Bobby suggests that they try to go to Flip's Food and Fuel next. So that's where they go next. Yes, Bobby gets some nachos with some toppings that Lori likes. Bobby gets nachos with Lori's favorite toppings, and Lori gets Bobby's favorite flavor of a Flippy. Unfortunately, though, they accidentally bump into each other, and the food and beverage spill on each other and also spills on the floor. Lori and Bobby are thinking that they should give up now and think that it might be time for them to let each other go, but they're clearly not happy about it. Bobby says that he's going to clean up in the bathroom first, though, because he figures that the bodega truck will smell bad otherwise, and Hector wouldn't like that. So Bobby goes into the bathroom at Flip's Food and Fuel, but 10 minutes pass and he's not out of the bathroom yet. But Lori receives a call from Bobby, and Bobby reveals that the door for the bathroom is broken, so Bobby is trapped in the bathroom at Flip's Food and Fuel. So Lori gets Flip to try and open the door. Unfortunately, though, Flip accidentally breaks off the doorknob for the door to the bathroom, so Bobby is still trapped in there. So after that, though, at a later point in time, Lori assures Bobby that she did call help. Lori called the fire department, and the fire department are on their way to free Bobby. And Bobby admits that he hopes that they make it soon because he's afraid of confined spaces. But Lori assures Bobby that she will continue to talk to him over the phone to comfort him until the police department arrives. So they try to figure out what to talk about. Lori suggests a topic that she brought up during the awkward conversation from earlier in the segment, something that happened in math class, and Bobby is excited to hear about what this event is. So the next scene shows some time passing by, and the conversation is changing during these brief time skips. At one point, the conversation changes to Lori talking about a dinner that happened the week before. And then eventually, after another time skip, the conversation changes to a hypothetical question about if you would rather give up all cheeses or all desserts. And Lori and Bobby both admit that it's difficult, especially when it comes to cheesecake. And after this, Lori and Bobby share a heartwarming laugh with each other, and they like how this conversation was very pleasant and it wasn't awkward at all. And they don't. Yes, both Lori and Bobby don't understand why they were why they thought talking to each other was so difficult. And Lori and Bobby both admit that they became paranoid after that one awkward conversation that they had earlier in the segment, and it caused them to panic. They both agree that's what happened. And they both agree that they don't need to fix what isn't broken. What matters at the end of the day is that they care about each other, and they do confirm that they do care about each other. So that's really what matters when all is said and done. So eventually, the fire department arrives, and Bobby is freed. And they actually do get to have a romantic experience after all. Lori requested a ride from the fire department, Lori requested a ride in one of the fire trucks, and the fire department were willing to go along with this. So Lori and Bobby do get to have a ride in a fire truck, and they do consider it to be very romantic. And Bobby also says that he's up for watching that movie that they were watching earlier. He still wants to see the movie, even though he knows about the event that Lori accidentally gave away to him. And unfortunately, Bobby accidentally gave away that event to a fireman. A fireman is not happy to hear the event that Bobby mentioned. The fireman comments about how that was spoilers to him. So that is how we end this segment. So this segment is another entry that goes into detail about Lori and Bobby's bond with each other. And this particular entry actually goes into detail about Lori and Bobby's bond with each other after the events of the Loudest Mission Relative Chaos, which was an episode that changed the status quo in a significant way, because that was the episode when the Santiago family left Royal Woods to stay with their relatives, their extended relatives in Great Lakes City, the Casa Grande family. So this segment ends up talking about long distance couples or long distance sweethearts. That's what Carlos Sr. said at one point in the segment. And this segment does bring up a very important point about long distance bonds. The segment does acknowledge that maintaining bonds with someone over long distances is not easy. But at the same time, the segment also acknowledges that just because maintaining bonds with someone over long distances isn't easy doesn't mean it's impossible. It still is possible, even if it comes with its own challenges. So I think those were important lessons, mentioning how, I think the lesson about long distance bonds being hard to maintain, I think the lesson about how it can be challenging to maintain bonds over long distances, but it's not impossible. I think those lessons were very important. And it was heartwarming how Lori and Bobby, by the end of the segment, we see that Lori and Bobby's bond with each other is still very strong, and that is rather heartwarming. And besides that, though, there are some other lessons that are also important with this segment. There's the lesson about don't fix what isn't broken, because Lori and Bobby both realized that they tried too hard. But this also led to another lesson about paranoia getting the better of you. Yes, Lori and Bobby ended up trying really hard, or trying to fix what wasn't broken, because they both let paranoia get the better of them, because they let their paranoia over that one awkward conversation over the phone. Yes, that one awkward conversation over the phone got the better of both Lori and Bobby, and that's what led to them trying to fix what isn't broken, and what led to the conflict for this segment. And I have seen, though, while that awkward conversation was the catalyst, I've seen some fans make the argument that Hector and Lana could be considered unwilling instigators of doom, because they ended up distracting Bobby and Lori from their phone conversation with each other, or their 4 o'clock call with each other. So while paranoia getting the better of them was pretty much considered the main catalyst for the conflict of the segment, I had seen some fans argue that Hector and Lana could be considered unwilling instigators of doom. And some fans would say that Hector, Carlino, Lana, and Lola also kind of added to the complications that happened throughout the segment, because Hector threw away the newspaper that Lori had, with the article that Lori had made for her and Bobby, and Carlino replaced the flash drive that Bobby intended to send to Lori with his own flash drive, and Lana and Lola both ended up eating the pizza that Bobby had delivered to Lori. So while Lori and Bobby's paranoia did get the better of them, I have seen some fans make the argument that Hector, Carlino, Lana, and Lola didn't help matters either. So I've seen some fans debate about that. So that's something, I've seen some fans debate about how much Hector, Carlino, Lana, and Lola's actions affected the conflict of this segment. But in any other case, though, it was also heartwarming, though, to see the family members looking out for Lori and Bobby. Yes, some fans did consider it very heartwarming to see the Loud parents try to cheer Lori up, and Carlos Sr. and Frida in particular tried to cheer tried to cheer Bobby up, and that was pretty heartwarming. And it does give us some small details about the backstory for these characters. Like, we find out that Lynn Sr. and Rita were separated from each other for a month because Lynn Sr. had mono at one point, and Carlos Sr. and Frida were long-distance sweethearts during the time when Frida was attending art school. So, yeah, we know Frida attended art school, too, so that's another detail. They're small details, but they still give us a little insight about these characters' backstory, so I do appreciate that. And speaking of little details, there was the detail with Ronnie Ann. Yes, when Ronnie Ann heard Bobby, when Ronnie Ann noticed that Bobby was feeling troubled, Ronnie Ann's response was admitting that this topic wasn't her field of expertise, and that does acknowledge a detail about Ronnie Ann, how Ronnie Ann is a character who has a hard time expressing her feelings. We've seen this when she initially appeared in the series with her misguided attempts to express her feelings to Lincoln, and we also saw this in City Slickers, where Ronnie Ann was afraid of being honest about where she came from to the City Kids trio because she feared they wouldn't want to be her friend if they found out that she wasn't already from Great Lakes City. So yes, like I said, it was a small detail, but I did appreciate that they did acknowledge that one of Ronnie Ann's flaws is that she is someone who has a hard time expressing her feelings. I still hope that one day in the future they can dedicate an entry about the root for why Ronnie Ann has a hard time expressing her feelings. Oh, and while I'm on the topic of Ronnie Ann, this segment stands out because I would say this is the first time where Ronnie Ann appeared in an entry, but she wasn't really a key player in the entry. And this kind of goes into this is something I've noticed in season 3. Yes, Ronnie Ann actually has the most. Yes, between season 1, season 2, and season 3, Ronnie Ann has more appearances in season 3 than she did in season 1, and she has more appearances in season 3 than she did in season 2. However, even with that in mind, season 3, while Ronnie Ann has more appearances in season 3 is also the season where Ronnie Ann has a back seat in some of those entries. Of Ronnie Ann's appearances in season 3, I would say there's really only 2 entries where she's a key player in those entries. City Slickers was one of them, and Ronnie Ann's next appearance in season 3 is the other one that I would consider are the ones where she's a key player. And that brings up a detail with the first 2 seasons. Yes, while Ronnie Ann had less appearances in season 1 and in season 2 when compared to season 3, and even though Ronnie Ann didn't always have the most screen time in her appearances in season 1 and season 2, Ronnie Ann still was a key player in her appearances in season 1 and season 2. She still played a significant role in the plot of her appearances in season 1 and season 2 in some capacity, even if she didn't have the most screen time in those appearances. Season 3, though, gives Ronnie Ann appearances where she's not really a major player in the entry. It's more just to acknowledge Ronnie Ann is there. Yeah, it's more like Ronnie Ann's existence is being acknowledged, but she's not really a major player in more entries in season 3. Although this might partially be because of the upcoming spin-off series, the Casa Grandes, where Ronnie Ann is going to be the main character. So while I know some fans were definitely bummed out that Ronnie Ann seemed to have less prevalent appearances in season 3, even if she had more appearances in the season when compared to season 1 and in season 2, yes, some fans can at least be assured that Ronnie Ann will have her chance to shine in the spin-off series. And Ronnie Ann will have another key player. Yes, Ronnie Ann will have another key player role in another season 3 entry that's coming up. But yeah, I did notice that this was probably the first entry Ronnie Ann appeared in where she wasn't really a key player in the entry. And this is also, yes, while I'm thinking about it, this is also the first entry that Ronnie Ann appears in, but Lincoln doesn't appear in. So this is one of Lincoln's absences. Yes, this is one of the entries that Lincoln doesn't appear in at all. So I thought that stood out to me too. Ronnie Ann This was the first entry Ronnie Ann appeared in without Lincoln appearing. So actually, yes, I think Lori, Lana, Lola, and the Loud parents. Yes, those were the only Loud family members that appeared in this segment. And of course, I'm not counting Lincoln's appearance on the title card of the segment. In the actual segment itself, Lincoln's not present. Just Lori, the twins, and the Loud parents. They're the only Loud family members that actually appear in this segment. And otherwise, yeah, I thought, I did appreciate that we did get to see a little bit more about, yes, we got to see a little bit of Lori and Bobby's, we got to learn a little more about Lori and Bobby, or actually, yes, they did reference something from an earlier entry. Yes, this is another example of serialized elements being prevalent in season 3, more so compared to the first 2 seasons, because they actually referenced a detail from season 1. Yes, Lori mentioned, in this segment, Bobby wanted to recreate the event that led to them going out on their first date when he left brownies in Lori's locker. And this was actually acknowledged all the way back in season 1. This was mentioned in Driving Miss Hazy. Lucy made a poem in exchange for a ride in Driving Miss Hazy, and the poem was about in Lucy's poem, it's mentioned that Bobby left brownies in Lori's locker, which eventually led to them having their first date. So I did appreciate that. I appreciate that they recognized that detail. I know some fans might have thought, oh, that's such a small detail. The staff or crew members probably forgot about that detail, but they actually remembered it. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that gives me hope about certain other details haven't been forgotten and will be brought up again later on. So that's what I liked. It was a small detail, but they still remembered it, and I'm hoping that means other details that were brought up in earlier entries won't be forgotten. Sort of like how that detail about what led to Bobby and Lori dating for the first time wasn't forgotten. So otherwise, I guess the other detail to talk about is we see that Carlino still has a crush on Lori. And I know some fans weren't fond about that, sort of like how some fans weren't fond of Clyde having a crush on Lori. And I bring that up because some fans, I think it was in this segment, sometime after this segment aired, I remember seeing some fans saying that they can only imagine what would happen if Clyde and Carlino were to ever cross paths with each other. And at least in my based on my observations or my reference pools, I haven't seen any fan works that actually tried to take a spin on what would happen if Carlino and Clyde cross paths with each other. But who knows? Maybe some fans might come up with something about their first interactions with each other. But in any case, that might be about it for this. There's one thing I guess I want to bring up. Yes, one thing was something I actually learned about a little before this entry aired, or this was something I recognized happening with one of my relatives. More specifically, I'm talking about the virtual date night. One of my relatives actually did a virtual date night with their significant other too, although unlike Lori and Bobby, things went a lot smoother. I think it helped that they actually were watching on TVs rather than computers, so that might have helped, not having to worry about Wi-Fi complications or buffering problems. But yeah, it was a few years ago. I remember one of my relatives was partaking in a virtual date night with their significant other. So when Lori and Bobby partook in this virtual date night, that stood out to me. I was like, oh, hey, I remember when one of my relatives did that. So yeah, I guess that actually is a thing that some people do, or some couples apparently do have virtual date nights. So I thought that was a cool detail. Otherwise, though, yeah, that might actually be about it. So, like I said, I thought this was a nice look at Lori and Bobby's bond with each other after the change in status quo with the Santiago family going to Great Lake City to stay with their extended relatives, the Casagrande family. And I do think the lessons that they provided in this segment were important lessons, and I think they were well executed. Lessons about how maintaining long distance bonds with others isn't easy, but it's not impossible either. The importance about not fixing what isn't broken, and also complications that can happen if you let paranoia get the better of you. So I thought those were all important lessons. I did appreciate the little details that acknowledged some backstory about some of the other characters besides Lori and Bobby. And yeah, I thought the virtual date night was a pretty cool scene because it reminded me of something that one of my relatives had tried with a significant other, although they had more success than Lori and Bobby did. Oh, I guess I should bring up one last thing. It came to mind. I realized I didn't bring it up in the recap and thoughts video for City Slickers, but Ronnie Ann did receive a slight redesign in season 3. She now has stress marks around her eyes, like Lincoln does, and like her older brother Bobby. So some fans figure this is probably the result of her living with more family members, like how Lincoln has a great number of family members that he lives with. So again, that's a small detail, but I thought it was worth bringing up. Yeah, Ronnie Ann did receive a bit of a redesign in season 2, but she received another redesign. So yeah, this is another example of characters having redesigns over the course of the series, and this redesign actually does tie into the events from the show itself to highlight the serialized elements. So besides that, I think that's about it now. Yes, I think I've covered all that I feel is necessary for this segment. So as of this video, we've now discussed the B segment for... Yes, as of this video, we've now discussed the B segment for episode 61 of The Loud House on this channel. Take care, and until next time.